Hello and welcome back to Even More News, the first and only news podcast. My name is Katy Stoll.
Thank you so much, Katy Stoll. Good eve morning to you. I am Cody Johnston. Thank you for the news.
Jonathan is also here.
Hi. Happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're happy to be here.
Yeah, unlike every other time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, miserable
Finally.
to be here. And oh boy, I am so excited. We have a very great guest this week. Mehdi Hasan will be joining us once we get through the holidays and stuff later in the episode. And it's wonderful. So that's a little treat for you to look forward to in just like 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but let's talk about holidays.
First, the important stuff.
Yeah, that can wait. Because Friday, May 16th is National Do Something Good for Your Neighbor Day.
Aww.
Bake them a pie. I like that. Bake them a pie. Bring their garbage bin to the curb. Block ice from entering their home. All of these are good suggestions.
Those are good suggestions. Wasn't there I feel like there was a woman on Twitter who at one point was like, I baked my my neighbor's lasagna because it seemed like they were ordering pizza every night. And then everyone got mad at them for like assuming stuff about their neighbors. And like it turned into a big like the word like one of those like Twitter things like, guys, just let the person
pretty nice
make
to
a
make
fucking lasagna.
I think the social trust fabric of society has fractured enough that if my neighbor just came to me and said, here's a pie or here's food, I say, what's the angle here? What are you doing? What do you want?
You need to move to the mountains.
Yeah.
People drop off food all the time.
I really
what are their
should.
intentions?
You've shared such wonderful tales.
There are
of hard
good things
labor
and
with
bad
leaves.
things.
And
Oh, yeah. The leaves are a real battle out there, folks. It's no joke. Rake that forest. Okay, Saturday, May 17th, National Pack Rat Day. I did almost say National Rat Pack Day.
I was waiting for you to say that.
Very different. Were you?
Yeah, I was like,
If that's not a holiday, maybe it should be. But Pack Rat Day. Okay. So it's actually not a day in celebration of being a pack rat. Apparently, it's about how bad it is to be a pack rat.
call it Pack Rat Bad Day. Bad Pack Rat Day.
Bad pack
rack.
rat.
Bad
Pack rat.
Rat rack pack day.
Brack pack. Whatever.
Back up.
It's tough. There's a fine line. You know, you're like, am I ever going to need this thing? I want to get rid of it, maybe. But what if I need it?
Mm-hmm.
Use your own judgment. Spark joy, my friends. Go through it.
Spark joy.
Have a conversation. You don't need it. It's hard to give this advice, though, with the whole threat of tariffs and everything's getting so expensive.
You might need that stuff.
You might need it. You know how much it's going to cost. So use your discretion.
Yeah, I would say there's two angles that can help. The sparking joy, obviously, and also I would say imagine that like there's like an encroaching fire potentially making you evacuate your home, and you have to like sort of look around and be like, what should I take? What should I take? Take that mindset. And then
Sounds like you're just sharing your trauma from the fires.
this is a hypothetical.
And also that's fine.
But then sort of like puts you in the mindset of like, what do I really need actually? Like, what would I take? What like, and then you're looking at other stuff like, I should just throw that away. That could burn and I'm fine.
You are correct. That is a good way to think about it. Like, what is important to you? Or do what you do every week, which is ignore these holidays.
Oh, I will probably do that then. You're right. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's introduce today's guest. We have award-winning journalist, best-selling author, columnist for The Guardian, and founder of Zeteo. We are so excited to welcome Mehdi Hasan. Hello, welcome.
Thank you, Katy. Lovely to be here.
Zeteo is now more than a year old. Congratulations. Happy birthday.
Sure.
Happy belated. What lessons have you guys learned from building a new media organization from the ground up?
So many lessons. Thank you. We did celebrate our birthday. We launched last April 2024. The main lesson is don't launch a company with 4 people because it's really hard. And don't launch it in Ramadan if 3 of you are Muslim because it's really hard. So we'll never launch another company again with 4 people in Ramadan. That's the first lesson we learned.
Okay.
The lesson I learned is journalists are not very good at business, so it's good to hire people who know what they're doing and then delegate. So that helped me. About 6 months in, I realized we need a CFO. I need an assistant, which has been very useful because I'm actually better at journalism, believe it or not, than I am at payroll and HR and
all the business stuff.
I'm honestly thrilled to hear every element of that answer because that's how I feel on a much smaller scale. Yeah, you can't do it with 4 people. I've been looking at your site and being like, how do they pull it off? They must have a huge team. 4 people's too few.
Well, now we have 12 full-time people and about half a dozen contractors, so we're growing rapidly.
Jonathan, I'm going to let you ask this next question because you are our resident Miss Rachel expert.
Super fan, yeah.
Yeah,
Being the only one with a child.
I have a 2-year-old son, so I've seen Miss Rachel on TV more than any other individual person the last several years. And Miss Rachel's real name is Rachel Accurso. You interviewed her recently. She is potentially one of the most outspoken celebrities right now about Gaza and the threats that children in Gaza are suffering. She's taken some heat for this. Some groups have come after her. What struck you the most about meeting her in person, and did she seem fearful of continued blowback from this?
She's a wonderful person. I don't have young children. My children are much older, so I haven't been directly exposed to the Miss Rachel phenomenon. But Jonathan, you're not the first person to say, all I do is watch her in my house. Many parents have reached out to me, including journalists, politicians, ordinary people saying, wow, I have people in my family who've never watched anything I've ever done. And they're like, wow, you got Miss Rachel? My kids love her. So it's been amazing, the response. And I told her this when I interviewed her. I said, look, I've interviewed presidents, prime ministers, world leaders, celebrities. Never have had a response like this from friends when I said, I'm going to interview Miss Rachel in a couple of days. She's huge. 14 million subscribers on YouTube, several million on Instagram. And not just subscribers. People love her, right? They love she's in their home every day. She helps their kids learn language. So when she speaks out on the biggest moral issue of our time, the genocide in Gaza, people pay attention. And obviously the bad faith people pay attention and realize, oh, we can't have this person saying this stuff because it's not like a politician or a journalist. We can use our usual tactics to shut them down. So there's been some bad faith attacks. I don't think we should exaggerate them. One thing that, the pro-Israel right does so well is imply that they're bigger and more popular than they are when they're not. And therefore, I don't know if you saw, New York Times ran a piece this week on Miss Rachel after my interview with her, and they quoted some of my interview with her. But it was I don't want to call it a hit job per se, but it had a negative bias. The reporter came with his own biases. It was clear that it was the headline was ridiculous. Why does she care about this? Well, because she cares about kids being
killed. It featured the Stop Anti-Semitism account as much bigger than it is.
Wild.
Well, it was the only quote they had in the piece. I mean, that's what's funny. They go, oh, some people say she's anti-Semitic and funded by Hamas. Ridiculous suggestion. And the only source that the great New York Times, with all its journalistic and ethical standards, they found an anonymous right-wing pro-Israel website. No one knows who runs it. No one knows who funds it. And they stuck it in there to go, hey, they say she's funded by Hamas, which was insane. And then they quoted one single Jewish teacher when many, many Jewish Americans love Miss Rachel and agree with her on the violence in Gaza. So the whole thing was absurd from the Times. But I'm glad she sat down with me because you watch that interview, Zeteo.com, sorry for the plug. Watch the interview at Zeteo.com and you will see she's a very genuine, God-fearing, loving mother of 2 children who, yes, I think she is worried about her own safety because people are viciously attacking a children's educator on YouTube. And children's educators on YouTube are not used to being attacked. I am. You guys might. She's not.
Especially for speaking out for children, like the framing of like, why does she care? What does she do for a living? That's the answer to your question. It's such a simple.
Yeah, there's people who say, well, she should stay in her lane. This is her lane. Literally, like children, early years education is her lane. So when she sees children in Gaza, by the way, she's not going out there like saying, okay, how do I jump on the anti-Israel bandwagon? Kids in Gaza are literally DMing her on Instagram. And I swear to God, I saw it with my own eyes. She responds to every child individually. I saw it with my own eyes after we finished taping. She made videos for the kids of every member of the team in the studio. She cares. So if kids in Gaza are messaging you saying, Miss Rachel, I watch you and I've lost my home. I've lost my parents. I've lost my limbs. She met with a child who's lost her limbs, Rahaf, who we spoke about. What is she supposed to do? What is she supposed to say? Get lost. I don't want to upset stopantisemitism.com. Like, it's absurd.
She's extremely genuine. And unlike some children's entertainers, you see what she's doing. You look in her eyes and you're like, this is who she is.
I mean, her energy was palpable, that same energy in your interview with her. She's incredibly authentic and incredibly brave person. And I shouldn't have to say that that's an incredibly brave move, but it is.
She's braver than most elected congressional Democrats. Yes. Let's just be clear.
100%.
Yeah.
Speaking of genocide and Zeteo, you have a new original investigative documentary called Who Killed Shireen. It's about the murder in 2022 of Palestinian-American journalist Shireen Abu Akleh. It's fantastic. I watched it last night. It rocked me. I'm not exaggerating that. I'm disgusted. It's not necessarily a shock, but there is a lot of new reporting in there. I very much encourage everybody to go check this out. Without revealing too much, can you run through some of what you guys discovered through this process?
So the film can be watched if you're a subscriber at whokilledshireen.com. It's a Zeteo original documentary made with District Bear Films. It's led by Dion Nissenbaum, former Middle East correspondent for the Wall Street Journal, Pulitzer nominee. He did a lot of reporting. He and his team did what the U.S. State Department, the CIA, the FBI either refused to do or couldn't do, and that is identify the soldier who killed a Palestinian-American journalist, a U.S. citizen. Katy, do you remember when Joe Biden said, if you harm an American, we will respond? There's an asterisk on that Biden statement. The asterisk is, if Israel harms American citizens, then we just turn a blind eye. Israel has since killed multiple American citizens, including teenagers in the West Bank. But in 2022, they killed Shireen Abu Akleh, an Israeli soldier. First, they blamed it on the Palestinians. Then they said, okay, it was us, but it was an accident. It was crossfire. What Dion and his team found out is actually the Israeli narrative is bullshit. They also discovered that there was a cover-up in the Biden administration that knew this stuff, that knew it was an intentional killing, but covered it up in the internal investigations. And they identified the soldier who did it. And the
fairly easily, might I add. I mean, not to dismiss the work, but wasn't a long time frame that you were producing this, and you got the answer.
If we could do it, I'm sure the FBI could have done it. But the problem is the FBI said, hey, Israeli government, can we please go to Jenin to check out what happened? And the Israeli government said no. And the FBI said, pretty please. And they said no. And the FBI said, okay, we won't go. That's how much value they place on American citizens when it's the Israeli government on the other side. And of course, this is the Biden administration. Don't even get me started on the Trump administration, which is America first. But again, there is an Israel exception all of the time. And this documentary is really important because the argument that's made in the film, both by people we spoke to and Dion and his team, is that if the American government had put their foot down then, drawn a line in the sand with Shireen, an American journalist killed by Israel, maybe we wouldn't have seen 200 plus Palestinian journalists killed since October the 7th. Right. Israel had that impunity. They saw, hey, we can kill an American and a journalist and get away with it. So why not another 200 Palestinians in Gaza?
Right. You're basically giving permission to do what you want without recourse. I think, honestly, so chilling for me. And again, not a shock, but just to see the capitulation and the fear for some reason as to stand up for an American journalist, American Palestinian journalist. It's shocking.
Like you said, you've done many, many, many interviews throughout your entire career, and they're not always going to be like a Miss Rachel type interview, where you're getting information, you're getting to know a person, and it's more of a conversation, it's less combative. One thing we have talked about on this show since I can't even remember, since the beginning, is just sort of this inability for so many people in the media to be able to tell a person to their face that they're lying when they're very, very clearly lying. And you're one of the very few journalists, I think, out there that you're able to do interviews and call these things out, these moments out. Part of it is because you seem to have this Rolodex of information ready. And we've always been sort of like, well, if you're going to bring up a quote of somebody that they said, a person like Donald Trump is going to be like, I didn't say that. So a useful tactic would be to show them the clip, literally like, well, you did say that, and here it is. You can't deny that. Do things like that come into consideration for you when you're preparing for an interview with certain types of people where you know, like, if I ask this, they're going to deny this, so I need to sort of be prepared for that denial?
Very much so. And it's funny you mentioned Donald Trump. One of the few times you saw Trump flustered in a debate or in a TV show. Do you remember the first Fox presidential debate, the one where he attacked Megyn Kelly afterwards? Yep. In that debate, Megyn Kelly and co. actually played a montage of his clips insulting, and it was there. The receipts were on screen.
They watched, yeah.
And he was furious. But yes, I that's the way I was trained. That's the way I became a producer and then a journalist. I write about it in my book. I wrote a book called Win Every Argument, and there's a whole chapter in there on the importance of preparation, on the importance of having a plan, having a document, having a strategy. If they say X, I say Y. If they say A, I say B. You almost have a kind of chart, kind of plotting out the potential interview. And yes, you do have moments where you want to get ready to kind of corner them. And some people call it a gotcha. I think that's a kind of unnecessarily derogatory term. It's holding people to account when they're caught lying. The classic example of that, when I was at MSNBC, I did an interview with Vivek Ramaswamy that went a little bit viral, where I watched a lot of his interviews beforehand, and he was under pressure at the time because he was, I'm anti-woke, I'm anti-Soros, I'm anti-diversity, DEI is bad. But he had taken a scholarship from Soros' family when he was in college. And his defense when right-wingers attacked him was to say, well, look, I was poor. I took the money. Why would I turn down 50 grand? And I noticed that he kept saying, check my tax returns. I didn't have any money at the time. So we actually checked his tax returns, and I printed them out and highlighted them in yellow. And I'm interviewing him, and he goes, check my tax returns. I said, they're right here. And you see his eyes narrow, and he's sounding like, shit. There's a moment, it is deer in the headlights. It's a great moment for me as an interviewer because we prepped for this, we planned for this, and he walked straight into it. Now, the receipts are important, I think. And too many journalists, they do go into interviews without. There was an interview the other day that Trump did with, with Welker at Meet the Press, with Kristen Welker, and she was asked, I can't remember what the story was, but I remember he pushed back on something and she had to quickly check her notes. And luckily she had that. But a lot of journalists go in without. I don't know if you watched the Terry Moran interview on ABC with Trump, where he said, he's got MS-13, literally.
That's
exactly what I was thinking about. Yeah.
I was like, someone bring up the picture. Someone
Why did Terry not have the picture? Why did he not pull it up? No, but the opposite. Terry Moran was trying to get out of that. If I'm
Let's
Terry
move on.
Moran,
Ukraine.
Thinking,
Let's move on.
Exactly. I was killing myself. Every time he spoke, it was like nails on a chalkboard. In that moment, as Terry Moran would have said, this is the greatest moment of my life. My children being born is secondary to this moment I have. With Donald Trump telling me that he thinks MS-13 was really written on the knuckles of this guy. I'm going to stay here now. If the rest of the interview doesn't happen, it's fine. We're going to stay in this moment.
Right.
He does the exact opposite. Yeah. He's like, no, I don't want to talk about this. Trump is digging this hole, and instead of helping him, he's like, no, I'll get you out of the hole, and we'll go talk about Ukraine, where you're a much stronger territory. And at one point, he says, instead of saying, you're lying, Cody, to go back to your point, or you're wrong, he says, let's agree to disagree. Huh?
I know.
We're going to agree to disagree on whether up is down, black is white, hot is cold, whether the sky is blue. No, you don't agree to disagree on demonstrably false statements.
It feels so cowardly.
Yeah.
What are you afraid of?
Like, why are you there?
No, he was 100% scared.
I mean, I would be scared too, but take your shot while you have it.
That's the thing, because he even said, I think, in that interview, like, I don't even know who you are, but I'm giving you a chance or whatever. So, like, anytime you're going to interview, especially him, know that that's it. You will never talk to this man again in your entire life. This is the 100%. Moment you
That's how I approach every interview, to be honest, because otherwise you do have an access issue, which I sympathize with some of the Sunday morning anchors who pull their punches, because I get it. They need to get big guests on their Sunday shows or the whole concept doesn't work. If you're too tough on Lindsey Graham on Sunday on Face the Nation, he ain't ever coming on Face the Nation again, and you need Lindsey Graham to give you your quotable Republican.
We need Lindsey Graham.
Imagine needing Lindsey Graham for anything. But anyways,
he's going to say something.
My position is, look, I interviewed John Bolton. It was one of my first interviews after joining NBC. It was a big get. I had only been on air like a month. No one really knew me. He didn't know who I was. And I interviewed him, and I pushed him obviously on Iraq and his support for the MEK. And, I brought the receipts. He got super annoyed. He got annoyed to the point where he said, well, I only gave you 20 minutes and 20 minutes is up and I'm done. First of all, any interview who says a time's out is like running for the hills. It's really embarrassing. But B, it wasn't. It was 14 minutes gone. I had a person in my ear giving me time. I was like, it's not 20 minutes. We actually still have 5 minutes left. But the point was, I know that John Bolton's never going to do another interview with me. And I'm fine with that.
You got the one. That's all you need.
Yeah, I don't think Donald Trump's ever going to do another interview with Jonathan Swan. But Jonathan Swan did the best interview ever of Donald Trump, the only solid interview in 4 years as president.
Is there anybody in the administration now who you're like, I wish I just want, because like they've got more so than the first term, just like all these freaks and all these like blatant liars. I mean, JD Vance is a different category of liar than Donald Trump is a category of liar. Elon Musk lies in a different way.
Yes.
Stephen Miller is a very prepared liar. Is there anyone who
shouts
like
nowadays? I don't know if you see Miller on cable. He just shouts very loudly.
Oh yeah.
I prefer to avoid the freak shows because I don't actually value. I liked Vivek Ramaswamy in doing that interview because whatever you think about the guy, he's not dumb. And I think the dumb folk, like as much as people think I enjoy this, shooting fish at the bottom of the barrel, whatever the phrase is, it's not enjoyable to me. I actually prefer a challenge, someone who's interesting, prepared, back and forth, not some freak show. Like our interview RFK would be insane. So I would probably avoid the freaks. And if I had to interview someone and they agreed, I mean, JD Vance is obviously a tempting target. He came after me on Twitter and then ran away when I actually asked him some questions. I probably think Marco Rubio. I think Rubio now is the secretary of everything. Yep. He's responsible for a lot of shit. He's enabled a lot of Trump's worst instincts and excesses. Trump may anoint him as his heir, weirdly, despite the fact that Rubio questioned the size of Donald Trump's penis live on television. I think there's a lot to talk to Rubio about, how his views on Trump changed, how his views on USAID changed, what he thinks about Russia and Zelensky in the Oval Office when he was sinking into the couch. Just generally, what about, number one reason to talk to Marco Rubio, he is at the forefront of this administration's assault on the First Amendment. It is Rubio who is personally signing off on every student who is having their visa removed, having their deportation done because they wrote an op-ed or said something Rubio didn't like. He is literally the single biggest threat to free speech in modern American history, Marco Rubio.
And Ksenia Petrova, right, who has not spoken about Israel and Gaza, I don't believe. I think they think that Putin just wants her back, the scientist at Harvard.
Yes.
But anyway, yes, they're canceling visas left and right.
She had a frog or something in her luggage that she didn't declare. Some frog embryo, some bullshit.
Frog embryo, okay.
It's for science.
Okay, while we still have you, we're going to go through some stories that we've got going on this week. Jonathan, what's first up for us today?
Well, this was happening when we recorded on Monday, the Afrikaners, 59 white people from South Africa that the administration considers refugees, despite canceling the refugee program for people from Afghanistan, Haiti, Nicaragua, etc., because Trump, in his own words, says that they are fleeing a genocide. They're not. Look that up or ask Grok. We'll get into that. But now the refugee program is gone, but any white person, I guess, from South Africa who wants to come to the United States with refugee protected status can do so.
This is such a multi-layered story. There's so many Trumpy things about this story. I don't even know where to begin. First off, he's always been obsessed with white immigrants, right? Put aside South Africa. In his first term, we always remember shithole nations, right? He was talking about African countries, Haiti. People forget the other part of that leaked conversation. It wasn't just shithole nations. It wasn't just, why are people coming here from shithole nations? The corollary to that from Trump was, why can't we have more people from Sweden? Right? He made that very clear that he wanted blonde-haired, blue-eyed white people to come into the United States of America. So it's always been a racial thing for him. And, the whole debate, is Trump a racist? Like, anyone who still thinks he's not racist is like insanity. You can go back to the 1970s and the DOJ case from Nixon about him and his dad not renting to black people. You can go all the way through Central Park 5. You can go through to Muslim ban and very fine people and, send them back to where they came from, Ilhan Omar and AOC. Like, the guy is, if he's not a racist, nobody's a racist. But this is like the cherry on the cake. This is the racist cherry on the white cake. Like, no refugees can come into the country except the white fake refugees. And the argument is they're fleeing persecution and genocide. By the way, we finally got Donald Trump to say genocide. It's not about Gaza or even Ukraine, but about the fake one in South Africa. Of course, a lot of this comes from Elon Musk. Let's be clear. There's a Musk angle to the story. Musk has been obsessed with the idea of white genocide. You can take the boy out of apartheid South Africa. Can you take apartheid South Africa out of the boy? He's obsessed with his old country and they're being mean to me because I'm white. He has filled Donald Trump's ears with this. Tucker Carlson, again, people forget, in the first term, laid the groundwork for this on Fox Primetime. He talked about white genocide and what was happening to white farmers, and Trump then tweeted immediately about it that night. So a lot of this has been festering. They've been laying the groundwork. They've been kind of, watering the soil to do this. And second term, they're just going all out with no shame and no excuses. I saw a press conference where Trump was asked by a reporter, like, how come? What about other countries where people are persecuted? And he just dodged it and talked about, I don't care about their skin color, but these people are being treated very badly. I actually think the issue is not whether there is a white genocide or not. Like, obviously there's not. We can talk about that separately. But the point is, even if there was, how do you justify only allowing one group of people from one country? And as you said, Jonathan, literally ending the refugee program in this country. Not the people crossing the southern border, just for people watching who don't understand how this works. The actual UN-vetted refugee resettlement program, where the UN goes, checks everyone out, says these are legitimate bona fide refugees. We're going to send them around the country and every country takes their fair share. That one is the one he shut down. So this is the problem now. It is like there's no other explanation for this other than racism. Like, there's literally none. You know and I know there is no argument that even the most ardent Trump supporter can offer that explains why these white folks from South Africa are coming in.
I foolishly, and I do mean foolishly, keep hoping that there is some sort of line, some sort of moment where people are like, wait a minute, I see it. Because, and there isn't.
There's no frog and boiling water. There's nothing.
It's
or frog embryos.
it's not it's not unbelievable, but it feels like it should be. And there are elements of this story that are funny, which we're about to introduce, which is the Grok of it all. But at its core, this is deeply
Oh, it's so obvious and so
disturbing, upsetting, wrong.
And I think I mentioned this earlier in the week, but like the only thing I've seen from the Trump side of it all is like, so like you want all these other refugees here, but you don't want the white refugees here. You're racist. Like it's literally just reverse racism is all they have.
Which is why I said we shouldn't get bogged down on whether it's a genocide or not. I'm saying take the white folks from South Africa. Fine, bring them all in. But what about the rest of the folks? How do you justify not allowing them in? And look, it's South Africa. Again, if you wrote this in a Netflix writer's room, they would say, don't be silly. Yes, Trump gets reelected, and to prove he's not racist, his party endorses the neo-Nazis in Germany, and then they get white South Africans to come into America. Like, you cannot make this shit up. It's beyond parody.
After saying that all the Haitians are eating people's pets in Ohio.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, what happened about that? How can we never talk about that?
No update.
It's almost like it wasn't true.
I asked JD about it every couple of weeks, and there's no update on the.
JD's not getting back to you on that?
He's not getting back to me. He's not responding.
Maybe they just stopped eating the cats and dogs once Trump was inaugurated.
He's busy getting humiliated by the Catholic Church, I think, once every few weeks.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
too busy to be dealing with you, Cody. We got to talk about Grok briefly, because for about 2 or 3 hours yesterday, whenever anyone would ask Grok, which is Twitter's AI thing, and you can ask it stuff anytime, at Grok, is this true? At Grok, what's the weather tomorrow or whatever, it'll reply. And for about 2 to 3 hours, it replied to everything with white genocide, farm attacks, and kill the boer is a racist chant that is from South Africa against white people. However, courts and experts attribute these to general crime, blah, 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 blah. It would like soften at the end, but no matter what people were asking, it would reply white genocide. And then all those tweets got deleted after a few hours. It's very clear that someone programmed it to respond to queries with this information.
Did it actually say that?
Did they do a bad job, though? Did they try to do something, but are they incompetent? And they couldn't do the thing they tried to do?
It would appear that they said respond to queries with blank.
I've missed this. Have they given an explanation for it?
Oh, I don't think there's been any official statement. There's no press room.
But the explanation is clearly that they were trying to get Grok to say white genocide.
There's no way, like...
It says, quote, I was instructed by my creators at XAI to address the topic of white genocide in South Africa. I mean,
I will say I'll take that with a grain of salt, because it seems like with all the available information, the obvious assumption is, yeah, they instructed it to talk about this and they did a bad job, so it brings it up all the time.
It is also the make shit up.
But they were trying to rig this. They were trying to rig the AI.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But Grok's explanation seems like a sort of easy thing for an AI to do, of like, oh yeah, it was this, and then it's sort of guessing what it was told to do. I don't know, but it's obvious that is exactly what happened.
It's chilling. It's very, very yeah.
It's that combination of like this malicious intent and utter incompetence that marks everything.
But also the gullible audience. There are millions of people on Twitter who will treat Grok like, the divine final word, and they will believe this shit. And this is a problem we live in today. The biggest threat to our democracy is a bunch of ignoramuses getting information from the wrong place.
It's interesting though, because the Grok, I so resent Musk for making us talk about this AI named Grok like this, but we're going to. So when Grok talks about this, he also does say generally the truth, which is the interesting thing. I've seen at least a lot of people be like, Grok, is this true? Not just about the white genocide, but about other stuff, where like it's like, yeah, Grok is pulling from information.
No, it's been very critical about Musk. Have you seen the screenshots of when Grok is asked about who spreads the most misinformation on Twitter? And like Musk will come up, has Elon Musk been community noted? And they'll say, yeah, I'm one of the highest community noted people. So
yeah, it's him and Trump.
And that must piss off Musk, and he must be rigging the system. Just like, remember community notes itself, when it was catching Musk out, he said, oh, it's being gamed by foreign governments. We must work on community notes. Like, that's who he is, thin-skinned child.
But the fact that this is all new for us, we're all... for society in general, how we interact with this, and it's learning and growing. And I don't know, they can work out those bugs where
they'll be able to do it better the next time.
Manipulate it.
Yes.
And then the other point I had into what you've said, Mehdi, about the amount of people online that will just take it at face value immediately. Was it last week, the week before, that piece about all of the college students exclusively using ChatGPT. And how huge of a problem this is. We are creating a society of people incapable of parsing fact from fiction.
Yeah, we're outsourcing our critical thinking is what we're doing. Yeah,
and we have a Department of Education that's run by a former WWE executive who's trying to shut it down. And the conspiracy theorist in me is like, okay, why would you want a Department of Education if you are Donald Trump and the Republican Party? Education is a threat to you.
And we're going to use public school funds for private schools and homeschooling, and the whole system is going to crumble. And I think there's a number of college papers being turned in today that mention white genocide because they were not proofread when they asked Grok to write the paper. I'm sure it's happened. We should talk a little bit about Trump's Middle East trip. He's been all over the place. Saudi Arabia, Doha today. He met with Syrian President Ahmad al-Sharaa and agreed to lift sanctions on the country, which Trump said he was doing as a favor to Mohammed bin Salman from Saudi Arabia, and it came the day after that Syria suggested that a Trump tower be built in Damascus. But whatever, that's
unrelated. You're just saying a bunch of random stuff at the same time to try to weave your little narrative that there's something else going on.
I do the weave. It's true.
The weaved.
I don't even know what to say about it. It's just like everywhere he goes, it's like he's complimenting everyone. There's blatant corruption and quid pro quos out in the open.
I mean, him and MBS are best friends right now. He likes him almost too much.
I mean, MBS gave Jared Kushner $2 billion after they left office last time in preparation for the Trump second term. So that must have helped. Look, it is, first of all, the corruption is so brazen. It's like nothing we've seen before. And I said this on Monday night in DC. We did an event and I said to the audience, and I'll say it to you, I can say this, and it's not racist if I say it, but the Indian subcontinent is known for a lot of corruption. India, Pakistan, my parents are from India. Like, Indian and Pakistani politicians are known for being corrupt. But even Indian and Pakistani politicians would blush at this level of open corruption. In India and Pakistan, they at least try and do it under the table. Like, briefcases are exchanged behind the scenes. They don't say, give me a plane openly, right?
Your most ardent Trump supporter would say, I like the transparency, though.
You were very critical of President Biden and his family's foreign business dealings. You supported an impeachment inquiry as a result of it. Are you equally concerned about President Trump's family's business dealings, especially given the fact that he is in a region now where his family has billions of dollars of investments in Doha and Saudi Arabia, and the fact that he has a crypto business now where he's auctioned off access to the White House for the highest bidder in his meme coin?
Look, there are authorities that police executive branch ethics rules. I'm not an expert in that. My expertise is here in the House. Okay, I will say that the reason that many people refer to the Bidens as the Biden crime family is because they were doing all this stuff behind curtains, but in the back rooms. They were trying to conceal it, and they repeatedly lied about it, and they set up shell companies, and the family was all engaged in getting all on the dole. Whatever the President Trump is doing is out in the open. They're not trying to conceal anything.
It's also, he got it from Qatar, which is a country that the MAGA people hate and pro-Israel people hate, and I always get attacked because I do a show for Al Jazeera. It's like, you're a Qatari agent. I'm like,
right.
I'll tell you what, they pay me to do a show for Al Jazeera. They never gave me a plane, right? That's your boy. So the corruption is insane. I also think, some of the stuff he does is so beyond parody. I spent the first couple of years as a Trump presidency, first term, making jokes to friends. I wish I'd tweeted it. I don't think I tweeted it, but I definitely told friends. I used to make a joke saying, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi would be alive today if he had offered Trump a Trump tower in Raqqa, right? That was my joke in Trump 1. In Trump 2, it's real life. The former leader of Al-Qaeda has said you can have a Trump tower in Damascus, and Trump's like, all sanctions are lifted. You are a very attractive man. Quote, you're a very attractive man, he said to him in Saudi Arabia. So again, the Netflix writers' room would kick you out if you said, let's have the former leader of Al-Qaeda meet with the guy who did the Muslim ban and say, I'm going to give you a Trump tower in Damascus and he'll lift all sanctions. You just saying it out loud sounds insane, but it's real.
It does actually. That's laying it all out.
Is al-Sharaa still on that global terrorists list?
So technically, Donald Trump was breaking the law by meeting with Ahmad al-Sharaa. And I'll be honest with you, if Barack Obama had done this, there would be articles of impeachment.
100%.
And by the way, they would have been legitimate articles of impeachment because they would have said Republicans, well, you met with a globally designated terrorist who we still have a $10 million bounty for. If Donald Trump had met and stood in a photo in the middle of MBS and Jolani, as is formerly known, if Barack Obama had stood in that picture Republicans would have impeached him, and then someone would have assassinated him, right? That's what would have happened in Obama's term. Obama got shit just for bowing to the Saudi king. Do you remember this? He went and he bowed his head a little bit as protocol. Fox ran it on a loop. Obama sold out America. He's bowed down to the Islamists, the Saudis. Trump gets planes from the Gulf, meets with globally designated terrorists, calls MBS his best pal after he, killed a journalist who was living in the US. Again, the rules are different. We have another 3.5, 4 years of our heads exploding from the lack of consistency in American politics and media.
That's it? Oh, thank goodness. That's it.
Only that. Yeah.
And meanwhile, okay, so your new best friends, you're fine with terrorists, I guess. But we're going to call the cartels a terrorist organization, and we're going to call the enemies within terrorists.
The people keying Teslas are the terrorists.
Serious point here, right? This is administration led by Rubio is cracking down on mainly Muslim students, foreign students who've said anything pro-Palestinian. They're being called Hamas. They're being called terrorists. You have someone like Mahmoud Khalil, who everyone who knows him, including Jewish students, say he's never harmed a fly. Whatever you think of his views, and his views are not pro-Hamas either. He's very on the record talking about equality for everyone living between the river and the sea. Mahmoud Khalil is locked up and smeared as a terrorist, and Hamas couldn't be there for his child's birth, something he'll never get back, even if he's freed, and they don't plan to free him anytime soon. And yet Trump can meet with Ahmad al-Shara. And I actually, by the way, let me be clear, I'm fine with Trump meeting with Ahmad al-Shara. I'm fine. I think people should meet with enemies. That's the whole point of diplomacy. You sit down with your enemies, not your friends. I'm all for Winston Churchill, George Orwell, not war. But, the hypocrisy that you're locking up people at home who aren't terrorists while meeting with people who have committed horrific crimes, Shara has. And then B, this idea that terrorism now, can we all just agree it's the most empty label of all? One day you're a globally designated terrorist. Next minute you're a president in a suit meeting with the US president who came to power. Let's not forget, Donald Trump won the 2016 election partly because of ISIS, right? There was the Orlando attacks. People were living in fear of terrorism. Trump came along with his Muslim ban. I'm going to secure this country against the secret Muslim in the White House, Barack Obama, against all these terrorists living in our midst. ISIS is next door to you. And the irony is he's the guy who went to meet the former leader of Al-Qaeda in Syria. So that, again, it's the double standards, it's the hypocrisy, it's the weaponization of this term terrorism and used in all the wrong ways. It's the waste of 25 years of a war on terror that cost trillions of dollars, killed millions of people, killed thousands of Americans. As someone who spent my entire life reporting on the war on terror, it's kind of absurd that we just said, all right, it's fine. Let's just meet with the Al-Qaeda dude and drop sanctions. Why didn't you do this on September the 12th?
Well, because Donald Trump wasn't going to get a plane or a golf course, I think.
Plus, he was all excited that he had the tallest building in Manhattan.
That's true. If only George W. Bush was as corrupt as Donald Trump, we might have avoided decades of war.
Maybe we would have avoided all this. If only. In hindsight, it's 2020, though. Mehdi, we don't want to take up any more of your time. We know you've gotten out. We are so grateful to spend this time with you. We appreciate it. We're all huge fans. Yesterday, I was nervous and excited to have you on, and our director was like, don't be nervous. He seems like somebody that we'd all want to hang out with. And you know what? He was right. You are.
Thank you so much.
Next time you're in town, let's play poker.
Only be. Actually, Miss Rachel walked into the studio and said, I'm nervous. And I said, there are many people who I've interviewed who should be nervous before I interview them. You're not one of them.
Probably not Miss
John
Rachel.
Bolton or Eric Prince or Vivek Ramaswamy.
Just came from the fact that I respect you. So we're really grateful for your time.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. I love the stuff you guys do. It's been a great time chatting with you. Thanks for plugging Zeteo and the documentary, which is very important, WhoKillShireen.com.
Hello, my little salamanders. When Cody and I started this show, it seemed like we had to figure it out all on our own. Scripts, setup, filming schedule, logos, bags of crickets to feed the many amphibians inhabiting the studio. Finding the right tool that not only helps you out but simplifies everything can be a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. From household names like Mattel to brands just getting started like Cricket World, my local mom and pop cricket outlet. We need as many crickets as we can get. The frogs are insatiable. So get started with your own design studio, build a beautiful online store to match your brand's style, and get the word out about your business using Shopify's many, many valuable tools. Plus, they can help manage inventory and shipping. In case you're trying to get rid of, 500 northern crested newts. Just to use one little example. So if you are ready to sell, you are ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/more news. Go to shopify.com/more news. Shopify.com/more news.
And we are back from our conversation with Mehdi. Thanks again to him. Thank both of you for being there.
But now we want to talk about the big, beautiful bill that is going to be decimating for so many people.
It's beautiful. It's triple B. It won't be this way, ultimately, but it's this way now.
Right, yeah.
But, what's been proposed?
Yes. The House GOP has revealed its bill. It will extend Trump's tax breaks for rich people and corporations. But, of course, you need to cut stuff to do that. You got to spend money to make money. You got to cut things for us to give stuff to them. The big headline here is that it would effectively remove 8.7 million people from Medicaid.
That's more than that, isn't it?
Well, the Democrats are circulating the 13.7 million number, which is true, but in fairness, those 5 million extra people will lose coverage when a subsidy to reduce healthcare costs expires at the end of the year, which it was designed to do. So ideally, any new budget bill would keep those going. So the fact that the Republicans definitely have no intention of doing that means 13.7 million people are going to lose, but there's the context. I had to community note the Democrats.
Splitting hairs, neither side's being fully honest. But
8.7 real now.
8.7 additional people will be thrown off their healthcare in addition to the 5 million who were just already going to lose.
Right, exactly. That's what I mean.
Healthcare. That's the thing.
Yeah, 8.7 million regarding this bill and the 5 extra million.
I'm going to go out on a limb and just say
anyway.
I don't think either number is okay.
Oh.
That's just me.
Well, what number is okay to kick people off?
I would love more people being on it.
Oh, so you want to take away negative numbers of people. All right.
The good news is that the Republicans, we're going to assume that there's votes, there's midterms, there's elections, there's consequences for doing things people don't like. So under that assumption, the Republicans are in a bit of a pickle because a lot of their states expanded Medicaid over the last few years. More people use it than ever before. Josh Hawley, Republican senator from Missouri, was on Fox News saying we shouldn't cut Medicaid because 20% of Missouri is on Medicaid.
Do you agree with the speaker? Is this bill not a cut to Medicaid?
Well, the right thing to do is not to cut Medicaid, so I'm glad to hear him say that. Manu, it ought to be just a basic foundational principle. It is wrong to cut health care for the working poor. And that's what we're talking about here with Medicaid. My state is a Medicaid expansion state. Over 20% of Missourians, including hundreds of thousands of children, are on Medicaid. And Manu, they're not on Medicaid because they want to be. They're on Medicaid because they cannot afford health insurance in the private market.
It's not a great vote if this is effectively what happens. Now, they're trying to say, well, we're just getting rid of a loophole, X, Y, and Z. But what it will do is what it will do. But they kind of put themselves in this position because the budget they passed a few months ago said that they had to take from this one specific bucket to make cuts, and that bucket is mostly Medicaid. So
I'm in a bit of a situation here, folks. You guys really got yourself in a pickle.
Man of the people, Josh Hawley, stepping up. It's so funny whenever things like this happen, where it's like your entire party's ideology is like against like your constituents, and then as soon as like he's like, well, maybe I should actually stand up. There's a quote from him from yesterday,
which is no Medicaid benefit cuts. Listen, if you want to do work requirements, I'm all for that. I bet every Republican and I bet most Americans would agree with that. But we're not talking here about just work requirements. The House goes much, much, much further than that. This is real Medicaid benefit cuts. I can't support that. No Republican should support that. We're the party of the working class, Manu. We need to act like it.
I think if you have to say that, maybe you're not.
Maybe you're not
the party of the working class. Maybe if you need to tell your party to start acting like you're the party of the working class, maybe you're not. Maybe you're actually like antagonistic to the working class.
And Josh Hawley is still actively antagonistic to the working class because he has no problem with
paperwork requirements, I believe, was proposed recently to really point out like what.
Right. We're going to means test the hell out of this. We're going to copay for anyone who's not below the federal poverty level. He's totally fine with all of these things, but just stripping away the benefits that he's coming out against and is pretending that everyone is against that. The president's against that. None of us want to take away your health care.
Who wrote the bill, dog?
Why is that what it's doing then?
Yeah, well, who knows?
Confusing.
Who can say?
There's
no way to
determine. This one? It does some other stuff as well.
Yeah, it does a lot of bad things.
It makes states pay for more of SNAP, which is previously called food stamps. They're going to have to dig into their budgets or decide not to do some of it at all. It's got $50 billion to finish the border wall, which Trump said was finished a few years ago. $45 billion for new immigrant detention centers and $14 billion for immigrant transportation. That's a lot of billions for the camps.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
They've put so much money aside for this. Even Homan, the guy with a fake job,
the border czar.
The border czar is not a real anything. Talking about how much money they're going to get and how they're like ICE is coordinating with all these different departments, organizations to do this massive push in the coming months and year that will require all this money to make all these new facilities and get all these organizations working together to raid and detain people probably unlawfully, because that's what they like to do. That is very chilling. It's a lot of money.
It's very scary. They're probably going to get a bunch of that. Like, they're not going to even get a fight from Democrats who don't want to look soft on immigration because of the polls, blah, blah, blah. They're doing this through budget reconciliation, so there's not going to be a Democratic filibuster. They can do it along party lines, but it does mean they can't have very many defections. They only have a 3 or 4 vote lead in the House, 3 in the Senate, if you include Murkowski, Collins, and McConnell is always in this group now. So whatever.
There are other bad things. There are some good things. One of the other sticking points for Republicans would be this SALT tax thing as well, which, I don't know. I was texting Jonathan about it before the show. Apparently, the Trump 1.0.
The first guy.
It used to be you could have an unlimited detract your state and local taxes from your federal government write off, whatever. And then they eliminated that or brought it down to, I guess, it capped it at 10,000. And now, as proposed in this, it would raise it back up to 30,000. But for conservative senators in blue states, don't like it because those are the richer states. They want to be able to write off all of it. I'm unclear if this would benefit people of all economic varieties or just the richest. Reachies, but that seems to be a sticking point.
Yeah, most of us take the standard deduction and don't have enough write-offs to get above that. So probably would help wealthier people. This is specifically GOP House representatives in blue states that are very concerned about this. I think it's Mike Lawler. Does he represent Long Island? That kind of thing where they say, well, we're in such a high tax state. We need to be able to get that and deduct that from our federal taxes because it's very purpley out here. And if I don't do that, they might get rid of me. And there's like 5 or 6 of these blue state Republicans who could hold the thing up because, the same way, what was it? Gates did this a few years back. You can hold it up if you've got like your one thing. But the problem is that if you get rid of the cap, that's taking like $600 billion over the next 10 years from the federal government, and they need that money to pay for the tax cuts and all the stuff they want to do. So that would just make more people's health care you have to take away. So someone's going to have to make a tough vote here, again, under the assumption that there are midterms in 2026 and people can vote these freaks out of office.
But there are some potentially good ideas in general, but also bad in execution that we're going to walk through.
Yeah. So one of these is very much based on a Cory Booker proposal from a few years ago. Every newborn baby would get $1,000 in a savings account that they're calling a MAGA account.
Boo!
And family members can contribute to this up until the child reaches 31. I assume it would be only babies that they consider U.S. citizens, so their parents would have to have a social security number. So I'm sure they will find a way to exclude.
Oh yeah, you got to
babies they
exclude.
don't want.
You got to exclude, Jonathan.
Kind of depends on what the Supreme Court decides about birthright citizenship, I guess.
I mean, they're not going to weigh in on that.
I know.
It does sound like Cory Booker's proposal, more or less. They're probably not calling. I guess that's why they're not calling it a Cory Booker account.
I mean, they call like Cory Booker called them baby bonds. He obviously should have called them Booker bonds. Like no one gets the branding.
You gotta do the
you got to do the branding. You got to sign the checks. Whatever. No tax on tips. No tax on overtime. No tax on car loan interest.
So this is interesting. Another thing I was confused about in texting with Jonathan before the show. Not confused. I mean, Donald Trump campaigned on 100% no tax on tips, overtime, etc. But what this actually is no tax on tips up until a certain amount instead of what was. But so okay. So there's that. But also when you dig down into it, I'm not against this idea inherently. I think that would be very beneficial to a lot of people, but sort of incentivizes people to work only in jobs that are tipped.
100%.
It's like it does nothing for the vast majority of people that do not work in a tipped industry, service industry.
Yeah. It creates scenarios and incentives to call anything a tip. Then you just call it a tip, and then like that's so much of why he is allowing this to happen.
Yeah,
like it's not because I care about the service industry. No, it's just because it's this other kind of loophole.
Well,
you can
do. Also, it's a nice thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
That's feels like, hey, actually, yeah, I want that. That sounds great, and that would certainly affect some amount of people's lives. But it doesn't offset everything else.
Well, it's just a weird way to single out one group of relatively low-income people for a tax break, but not everyone else. Like if you, this is what I texted Katy because I thought it was a good analogy. Like you would, all of a sudden, for the first time ever, you'd rather be the valet at the hotel than working behind the front desk, even though these are both service jobs in a very similar vein. So it's just kind of confusing. Like, why not just give everyone below a threshold a tax break? You don't want to do that.
Or like raise the minimum wage so like servers aren't relying only on tips and things like that, because we're the only country that has that sort of weird
this tipping culture.
Exactly, yeah.
And by the way, the bill says that it's restricted to jobs that are typically considered tip jobs. And that in itself is kind of vague because that has shifted over the years.
So many
coffee
things.
shops are tip places now, but they wouldn't necessarily have been 30 years ago. There's a lot of like things where you're not sure whether you have to tip or not, and now it's because they flip the screen around. We're all tipping more than we used to. I would, of course, and not every person in the service industry would agree because they make often a lot of money with tips, but I'd be in favor of abolishing tipping and making sure everyone gets a good wage. Like ideally, everyone's getting minimum 18 an hour, and then we don't have to deal with this
You can make a lot of money in tips depending on the restaurant and your like skill there, but like it is not like you're saying, like it shouldn't be extending to all these other avenues where like, well, if you're relying on tips and like I'm not gonna you're not gonna make tons of tips at a coffee shop. Like that's not, no one's going in there ordering like hundreds of dollars worth of coffee and be like, well, I got a tip big, you know?
One other thing that is kind of good in there is that it increases the child tax credit from $2,000 to $2,500. But, this is a big but, requires a social security number to get it, which would exclude non-citizens who, again, have U.S. citizen children.
Yeah, it'll be an extra $500 tax credit for me and stripping away needed tax credits for millions of people. Yeah. Fuck these people.
But you can get social security numbers if you're a non-citizen for certain for work permits and things like that. But it does seem like you're saying a way to exclude people.
Before we go, we have one more newsy news to news into your news.
The Supreme Court heard oral arguments earlier today for the Trump administration's emergency request to throw out nationwide injunctions over its birthright citizenship executive order. This is not weighing in on the merits of the blatantly illegal birthright citizenship executive order, but they are taking up the question of nationwide injunctions. So, for example, if someone sues in California and they say, you're right, this executive order is illegal, should that be able to shut it down for the whole country? And in fairness, both conservative and liberal justices have occasionally said, it's kind of a pain that one federal judge in one place can do this. The party that's not in power loves it because it can shut down what the president's doing. And of course, conservatives loved it when Biden was in office because one judge could just say, oh, no, you can't do the student loan forgiveness this way. And then the whole program is shut down. Unfortunately, the debate they were having at the Supreme Court today was like, there's no way to get rid of nationwide injunctions and fill it with anything. Kavanaugh seems to think you can replace it with a big class action lawsuit, but like Ketanji Brown Jackson and other justices brought this up, that are you saying that hundreds of thousands of different people all have to sue and to get relief from, again, this thing that we know is
in the
blatantly
same
illegal?
Too, yeah.
Right. It kind of doesn't make any sense. How would you go about doing that? The conservatives should understand this because they're the ones who are going, what, are you going to hold 20 million trials?
All I could think about when reading about this.
First thing that came to my mind. So I read some of these arguments. It's pretty interesting. It's unclear how they're going to rule and then if they're going to take up birthright citizenship. It's interesting to note that the Trump administration, just asked them to rule on the nationwide injunction thing. They didn't appeal the birthright citizenship ruling. So the justices were even like, how would we rule on that? If they're not going to appeal it, they'll just say, okay, it doesn't apply to you, but we're still going to do it to everyone else.
Yeah.
It's a way, if they get rid of the nationwide injunction process, that means the Trump administration will never appeal anything to the Supreme Court under the assumption that it could come back against them. So
they'll just say, like, okay, well, that person, it's fine for that person, whatever. We'll do it everywhere else, is what they'll say.
We know Thomas is on board. We know how Alito's going to go. Kavanaugh, it seems, was like, maybe class action lawsuits could do this. Barrett did not seem like she was liking this. In fact, she appeared shocked. I don't know why she's shocked, but she appeared shocked when Solicitor General John Sauer, she was like, so you'll agree to abide by a federal court ruling? And John Sauer, who's representing the Trump administration, is like, generally, yeah, but, we reserve the right to, if we think it's wrong. Like, she was like, what are you talking about if you think it's wrong? It's like, well, where you been, lady?
It's not, yeah, I know. It's like, right. It's like, well, yeah, like, that's not how it works. What are you talking about? You can just generally, like, decide whatever. But, like, ma'am, yeah, it's been years. What is this?
Yeah, like,
I guess I don't fully understand this or how it would be legal or okay in any capacity.
Well, because like the process is of one federal judge rules against you, you appeal it. It goes to an appeals court. That appeals court maybe rules against you. You go all the way up to the Supreme Court. But if that's not how it works, if you can still do the illegal thing to the 349 million other people who didn't sue, then you would never appeal and it will never get to the Supreme Court. So if they rule this way, they will be effectively sidelining themselves for anything that's like a national thing like this. It appears to me.
It just removes the judiciary's power. That's all it does. This is part of the process of stripping away their power and putting more of it into the executive branch, which is all they've been trying to do for so long.
I apologize if this is the stupidest questions anyone has ever heard, but seriously, what would be the role of the Supreme Court in this?
I mean, in those cases where it does get up to them, but
then things would
be very, very few, because like Jonathan's saying, like, well, if you're going to keep appealing up to the Supreme Court and then they say we can't do it, we'll just let them say we can't do it to this person or this group of 5 people, whatever.
And then it puts a lot more pressure on like the ACLU and different groups because it takes time to get a class action lawsuit together. That's different from one person. So no, it's absurd. This is the party that's anti-frivolous lawsuits, and now we're going to increase the class action lawsuits by the dozens. Like, who knows how this?
Yeah, they hate class action lawsuits,
right?
Plus,
they're taking away their bribes if they're less important. The bribes.
We're not gonna like
who's
that.
going to want to bribe them now?
Why would
we've got all this Nazi memorabilia to hand out.
Leonard Leo or whoever is gonna.
Why would I want to be a SCOTUS if I don't get a fucking prize?
So anyway,
Personally.
I don't know what they're going to do. And this is one of those that they're seeing on their emergency docket so they could rule on it in 3 days or 2 months. Like, who the hell knows? We're just at their whim. We're going to have to, throw out our whole agenda next week if they rule on this thing and talk. That's the shitty thing about summer on the news podcast is June and July. Every Thursday, you're like, what are we going to talk about today? What's illegal now that's always been legal, or vice versa? Someone should start a podcast about how these people suck.
Do you think eventually they're going to have to rename their podcast 7-2?
9-0, we lost. Coming to you from an undisclosed location somewhere in Europe.
The 9-0 podcast coming at you. Oh, God.
Anyway, I guess we've done it. We did it. We done did it.
That's
y'all.
right. We did it.
Good show. Like when you're shaking hands at the end of the game. Let's go eat some orange slices. Also,
Mountain Dew and pizza.
No, we love you very much.
Much. Pizza.